What's going on, everybody? This is Patriot Underground. Today is October 12th, 2025. Thank you so much for joining me, folks, to discover the truth beneath the surface. As always, I really do appreciate everybody out there taking the time to listen. So today, I'm going to cruise around and take you folks with me on a little coffee chat on this beautiful fall morning here in New England. It's about 54 degrees, definitely overcast, but the leaves are already starting to change. And it's a beautiful morning. It really is. A Sunday of a long weekend, which is also a wonderful thing. It's always great when your Sunday really is your Saturday. Or at least that's the way it feels anyway. And, here we are. The middle of, just about anyway, the middle of October 2025, just like that. Truly amazing. You blink your eyes, it's going to be Christmas. That's the way it goes. And the Great Awakening epic saga continues. Pattern recognition skills, right? After a while, you just sort of anticipate that there are going to be events. Some of them are going to appear to be positive on the surface. Some of them are going to be the opposite. But we don't really get emotionally attached to anything that's going on because we realize how transient the whole process is. And ultimately, the boomerangs inevitably come. There are a couple of different fronts, obviously, that everybody's watching right now. I mean, there was the abortion pill that got approved by the FDA that's still generating a lot of controversy. And then, of course, yesterday, day before, it was the announcement that Trump is going to be getting the COVID shot and the flu inoculation. And, predictably, people just all up in arms about it. Oh, my God. And it just regenerates brings us back to the same conversation that we've had about the vaccine so many times. Now, I can't sit here, honestly, folks, and tell you that I know what the play is going to be. I wish I did, but none of us do. But one thing I do know is that, I had BB McGuire on not too long ago. I was on her show, and then she came on Roundtable, and we were talking about all of the upcoming disclosures with regard to the vaccines. And we just got through processing the news about regression being linked to Tylenol in the aftermath of a vaccine adverse event and everything else. And now all of a sudden we're being told, oh, safe and effective. That same whole message, right? And people don't really know what to make of it at this point. If you're looking for a black pill, you're always going to find it. At least up until this point in the course of the operation. Why? Because we haven't really seen any major arrests. We haven't seen any major justice, any major disclosure on all of the fronts we've been following. Not only that, the fog of war is such in this parallel constructed plan that it appears as if Trump is on the wrong side of certain issues. One of them being the vaccine, another one being Israel, another one being AI, and the whole uproar that we had about Palantir. All optics, right? Understandable from our perspective as nuns, but there are a lot of people out there. Again, if you're looking for a reason to black pill, you're looking for I guess, some sort of an exit ramp, ideological exit ramp, thinking, oh, nothing is ever going to happen because X, Y, and Z. You're always going to find it, because that's the way that the white hats set this whole thing up. It's why we were told by Q that the end will not be for everybody. That the deeper we go, the more unrealistic it all becomes. And I, for one, got to a certain place where, I mean, going back a couple of years, before I really locked in, I would entertain the black pill for a while. I would think about it. Maybe it is. Maybe it is all a ruse. Maybe I'm the one that's being duped here. And I would play that game with myself. But eventually it gets to the place. And by the way, I never could actually ingest the black pill. I looked at it, I inspected it, I thought about it, but it never really felt right. But then eventually, you get to a place where you suddenly realize that you have two choices here. If you're awake, you can either believe that we're being screwed over and that we're being lied to and we're being duped and that Trump is basically the devil, or you can believe that nothing is as it seems, just like we were told in the drops, that everything has meaning. And even though we don't understand what that meaning is initially up front, that doesn't mean that it doesn't have components to it that are key to this operation. You made that very clear. So you can decide for yourself. In the absence of a full picture, which none of us have, are you going to just take that black pill and believe that despite all of the evidence to the contrary, that nothing is actually happening and there's no real military operation going on, and that certain people haven't clearly been removed already, and that the white hats are implementing an agenda that's completely at odds with everything that the deep state cabal wanted? You're going to just brush all that aside and say, well, we haven't seen any major arrests yet, and Trump is still talking about how great the vaccine is, and I thought he was going to end the war in Ukraine in 5 minutes. I mean, I guess that's the way that these people think. It's like they're always looking for a reason to talk themselves out of what we all know to be true, but just a more optimistic viewpoint. Some people would say it's hopium. Well, honestly, folks, at this point in time, if it was just hopium, it was all based on smoke and mirrors, and there was nothing actually real or concrete there, I'm pretty sure we would know. But again, you can't force people to take the red pill either. It's like, you're awakened. That has already happened. That's in your rearview mirror. But now you're at a crossroads where you have to decide. Either I'm going to see this thing through to the end, or I'm going to talk myself out of it and be constantly cynical. And it's amazing because I see people in the comment sections, I see people, in chat rooms, blackpilling constantly. It's like, well, why are you here? If you don't think that anything is happening, I mean, sure, trolls are going to troll. I get that. But if you don't think anything is happening and you think that Q is all fake, why are you even here? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And a lot of these people, again, I think part of it is that through that cynicism, through that black-pilled lens, it's almost like they're looking for somebody to prove them wrong. The problem is that the proof that they're seeking is not available on a fifth-generational battlefield. And a war that's completely based upon information and deception and propaganda and psyops and AI and CGI, where you don't even really know exactly what it is that you're looking at half the time. The first thing that we have to go through when we see new information is the process of, is this even real? So that's the level on which this war is being fought. And there are people who are saying, well, I want proof. Well, you don't understand the nature of the battlefield. You don't understand or understand, as some people like to say, what this war is really all about and how to discern. It's not based upon, like, here's the hard receipts for every single thing that we're saying. I mean, in some cases they exist, don't get me wrong. But if that's the only thing that you're going to accept as proof, well, then in that case, there's really no basis for a conversation, because you don't understand the importance of discernment. Discernment really is truth. That's what we're coming to learn. It's not about what somebody puts out there and dresses it up and makes it look nice and tries to present it as the truth, like we were all indoctrinated with the mainstream media. And not just media, but, education. The entire framework of our society has been based upon the illusion of authority being the truth. And the Great Awakening is all about dispelling that illusion and realizing that it's discernment that leads one to the truth. And when you're living in a world where you don't even quite know what it is you're looking at on a day-to-day basis, where you're getting all of this information dumped on you, cascading from every single direction, more than you can even keep up with, specifically designed to cause cognitive dissonance, to start to break down your matrix, then you begin to understand what it is that we're dealing with. And you realize that the more effective the move is, well, actually, I should say, the more confusing an event is, the more effective of a chess move it is ultimately. Because if people, including those on your own team, like the Anons, when certain moves get made by the White House and we don't even know where they're going with it, I mean, my goodness, how effective is that? That's like perfect camouflage. They can maneuver knowing that they have the trust of the core basis of this group of people. Now, we don't have to understand it. Some cases we will. We'll be able to present an analysis that's pretty close to where they might be headed with it. But in most cases, we get it wrong if we try to speculate about what exactly they're doing, how it's going to play out, etc. And that, I believe, has to do with a part of this operation and the planning of this operation that seldom gets talked about, which is the AI component. But more specifically, the White Hats knew that Anons were going to do exactly what we do. I mean, Anons are going to Anon, right? It's just the way it is. Normies are going to norm, Anons are going to Anon. So when an event happens, we're looking for codes, we're looking for clues, we're speculating. But ultimately, what we're doing is we're trying to figure out where it's going. Because that's the thing that everybody wants to know. Not in terms of dates. We let go of that a long time ago. and even, rough time frames. I don't even do that anymore. But everybody still wants to know, where is this headed? Where are they going with this? With every event that occurs. Whether we acknowledge it or whether we don't, the question that goes through everybody's mind is this, where is this going? Is this taking us one step closer? Are we getting close? Sort of a thing. What does this really mean in the grand scheme of things? So when the White Hats are planning this whole operation, what did they have to do? Knowing that we were going to have some of the most talented, brilliant people out there, I guess you could say, on both sides of this war of good and evil, looking at these drops, looking at the comms, and trying to read the tea leaves and figure out where it's going. If you're going to have so much brain power focused on that, then you have to deliberately mislead people in order to maintain the integrity of the operation, the secrecy of the operation. You have to. That's why Q said disinformation is necessary. But I would imagine that they, with every event they plan, they know that we're going to be thinking we're going to go down this road, this road, or this road. Door number 1, door number 2, door number 3. I'll give you an example, right? Mike King, who I have on my show every week, he wrote an article in the aftermath of the whole Gaza thing, the end of the Gaza war. And he admits in the beginning of the article, like he does all the time, we don't have the script. But now that this quote unquote wag the dog war seems to be coming to an end, where could the White Hats possibly take this? What would be the next scenes in the movie? And he narrows it down to like 4 different options. And he invites his readers to say, if you see it, maybe a 5th option, a 6th option, let me know. But all speculative. Right now, Mike King is a brilliant guy. Great and on. Just is a perfect example. So the wag the dog war in Gaza comes to an end. Now we're all wondering, where are they going to go next? Is there going to be a false flag? And I'm not going to go through Mike's article because you're probably going to do that tomorrow. But, is it going to be a false flag involving these 200 or so troops that are being sent there? Is it going to be option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4? Again, I'm not going to get into it right now. So the White Hats know that that's the way we think. That's how we operate. So for every event, I can almost imagine I don't know how they use the AI, but I can almost imagine them sitting there and going, okay, this is how they're going to think. This is what the bad guys are going to think. And I don't really think there are many of those actually left of the chessboard, as everybody knows, but low level, yeah. These are what the baddies are going to think. And this is what the Anons are going to think. So that means that we've got to take it in a different direction that they didn't anticipate. Because they know that we come up with we approach speculation based upon what we were told in the Q drops versus what we're seeing play out in real time. But they're always holding cards that we don't see. So they show us only so much to get us speculating in one direction, but they conceal other information that then becomes relevant. They inject that new relevant information into a situation, and it takes an entirely different turn that nobody could have anticipated. don't get me wrong, even I've been right about certain things in terms of the operation and how it's going to play out. But overall, I mean, sure, if you're speculating and you're guessing all the time, eventually you're going to get something right. I don't put myself on a pedestal for that. Right? The point is that they know how we think, and the way that they've designed this operation and rolled it out with the precision in which they've done. It just proves that unless you have that full picture, unless you know, because I mean, the reality of the matter is, folks, is there are too many variables. It's just like you learned in school, like with a science experiment, all the different variables that could change the outcome. We're dealing with a worldwide Great Awakening, fifth generation warfare operation that involves every aspect of society. I mean, I've narrowed it down to a certain degree to like the financial theater, the domestic, and the geopolitical, just for simplicity purposes. Just to kind of, get a basic framework in my mind of the different aspects of the war. And I don't think that's, I mean, I don't think it's inaccurate to say that, but it's also an oversimplification. But sometimes you have to oversimplify in order to have conversations about the big picture, and kind of like what we're doing now. But indeed, there are so many different variables involved in this situation, in this operation, that it is quite literally impossible and it's to predict, to speculate accurately, especially given the rate at which information is coming out. I mean, it'd be one thing if an event happened and we had, like, I don't know, a week to unpack it, to figure out all the different possibilities, and, to go down all these different rabbit holes and the certain aspects or avenues that they might travel down. If we had the luxury of time, I mean, that's the way it used to be. Something would happen, and then you could pick it apart for like a couple of months at least before something else big came along that changed the news cycle. But now, I mean, heck, we hardly even have a 24-hour news cycle at this point. And all of this is being done deliberately so that, again, they can conceal their battle plan. And yes, we still are at war. It's just not primarily a kinetic war at this stage. I'm not going to say that there aren't some aspects to that. I've been the first one to admit low-level people, like the low bottom tier of the cabal, and certain players, perhaps even at the mid-level, I don't know, being left on the chessboard for strategic reasons, having their strings pulled by the good guys. Yeah, absolutely. The 500,000 plus sealed indictments that can have up to 99 people named in one indictment. Yeah, we're talking about maybe some mid-level players, but primarily the mid to bottom rung, or tier, if you will, of the enemy. Still out there, still active, but with Patriots in control at all the key nodes, puppeteering them, influencing them, confusing them. There's no doubt in my mind that the cabal leadership was cut off. That was the first priority. There are people who have tried to argue the opposite. I can't get on board with that. As far as I'm concerned, it's quite clear. The military took out all of the bloodline families, the top tiers of the cabal, very early on. And then they started to move their way downward. Not this whole reverse, building from the bottom up type of thing. No. We never would have got this far if the cabal leadership were still in place. And I think my audience understands that. But they've done an incredible job at maintaining this fog of war, even at this late stage of the game. And sure, a lot of us, we might get a little bit pissed off about it because, again, it's being rolled out in a way that's not in accordance with our timeline, with our expectations. It's like I've said, that's how you end up getting, that black pill starts to look really attractive after a while if you're only thinking about everything that's happening through that lens. Like, this is what I want and when I want it. This is what I expect and how I expect it. And I don't like that people are screwing with my brain. Well, none of us like it. The only difference is that some of us have accepted it and other people continue to battle against it and try to wrap their brain around something that, quite frankly, was specifically designed so that you couldn't. Wrap your brain around it, yes, in terms of understanding the nature of the war that you're in and being somewhat at peace with that, yes. But not wrapping your brain around it in terms of being able to crack the code and figure things out, because forget about it. You're not going to do it. And here we are. Again, it's October. Did I expect that we were going to be having this type of conversation at this point in 2025? No, I didn't. Especially under the circumstances that Trump came back into office. I remember having conversations right around that time with Mike King and with other people saying, it looks as if, the reins are just, he's got free reign. He can do whatever he wants. There's no real opposition. There's no real counter friction. Anything that we see is going to be purely cosmetic, 60,000 man army stuff. And I believe that is the case. But he, came charging right out the gates. I never imagined that we'd be seeing so many zigs and zags at that point in time. But again, the deeper we get into this operation, the more you come to expect these things, and you just, at a certain point, you just have to embrace it. You just have to say this is the way that the good guys are taking down this enemy. And the enemy at this point in time is not a kinetic threat, because that part the military has already taken care of. They've removed the kinetic threat. They've removed the leadership, like I talked about a moment ago. We're basically already free. We've already won. That's what Q told us. Like, you don't go to war unless you've already won. If this was over before it began, paraphrasing a little bit here, mixing in a little bit of Sun Tzu. But this was over before it started, in that sense. Before we ever really fully picked up on what was going on, the military was taking out these high-value targets. And sure, to some degree, I'm confident that there are still kinetic elements of this operation that are continuing. But the point is that humanity's already been liberated from this enemy in terms of their control over us. Now, the question is, how do you get people to wake up and to acknowledge the truth without society falling apart? How do you bring forward the truth about these horrific realities? How do you unbrainwash the masses? How do you break down their matrix? How do you inject truth and justice and honesty into such a sick world where people are violently opposed to the truth? How do you do that? That is the war that we're still engaged in. And it is very real. The vast majority of people out there, folks, they don't have a freaking clue about the stuff that we know about, the things that we have long since accepted as being true. And whether we like it or not, and most of us don't, but whether we like it or not, this is the way that it has to be in order to achieve the objectives that we've spoken about ad nauseum on this show. Unifying the people requires their matrix to be broken down systematically, artfully, and at a pace that is frustratingly slow for all of us. Because again, we see it through the lens of we're already awake, we've known this for years. Let's just drop the freaking hammer already on these normies, and we'll pick up the pieces after the fact. And I understand that argument. There's a big part of me that wants to say, yes, absolutely. And there are days when I feel that way, but the truth is, if they drop that hammer too soon, it shatters everything. Beyond repair. I don't have to like that. But the fact is that a vast, vast, vast majority of the world are not like me and you, are not like you and I should say. And if you take an unsuspecting public, not even unsuspecting, but unwilling to believe, that's the thing. I mean, it'd be one thing if the public was just like not imagining that, oh my gosh, there's an industrial scale child trafficking operation. There is talk about industrial scale, genocidal attempt by rolling out this bioweapon on humanity. It'd be one thing if they just didn't suspect that were the case. And they were like, oh my God, no, it's not that. And it's part of it. It's the programming that goes violently. It triggers them violently against anything that would threaten their matrix. And I know I've talked about this before, but it's worth reminding people. I mean, be careful what you wish for, because if you were to just flip a switch, drop that hammer, and have like 80% of the population in complete chaos, an armed population, when you still have their low-level people that could use that, manipulate that, foment that into violence, into a civil war. Again, do I think that any of these people really have that power at this stage of the game? No. But at a certain point, they did. And even now, you could make the argument that the public still they're still completely seeped in their programming. And every event, I mean, and by the way, it's not to suggest that the White Hats haven't made progress. I mean, think about where we were in 2016. Think about where we were in 2020. Think about where we were in 2022. And now here we are in 2025. So I'm not suggesting that progress hasn't been made in inducing that cognitive dissonance and gradually breaking down that matrix, but it has to be done artfully, because until people are fully prepared, there's too much of a risk, even without the cabal leadership. Even if you wanted to say, and I don't believe this, but even if you wanted to say that all of the cabal had been dealt with, and that there were none of them left, and every single aspect of what we were watching was a movie, and there was no real threat from them, which I don't believe, again. But even if you wanted to go that far, that doesn't eliminate the threat of humanity unto itself. And that's the thing that I don't think a lot of folks out there fully appreciate. How fragile and how unstable our society actually is inherently at this point, because it was deliberately engineered that way. If the fabric of our society was woven that tight, first of all, we wouldn't be in this situation. But if it were, then it would be a lot easier for them to come forward and to reveal the truth to a unified public. But they designed society to rot from within, to divide us and conquer us at every level ideologically. And not just ideologically, but physically, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically. It's just a tinderbox that they've created that the deep state fully intended upon igniting in multiple different ways. So even when you take away the detonators covertly, even when you lock up or you bring to justice the mad scientists who had engineered all of this stuff covertly, you still have the toxic cocktail of the society that they created, that you then have to gradually reprogram. It's like those scenes in a movie where they have to deactivate a bomb. If you cut the wrong wire, the whole thing goes up. Boom. Or you cut another wire, you lose half the time that you thought you had on the clock. If you handle it too roughly, the whole thing could explode. That's the real weapon, folks. Yes, there are the kinetic elements. I get that. But the real weapon that the deep state created was humanity unto itself, pitting us against each other. And if you take a good look around, that ideology, that weapon, those divisions, they're alive and well. Are we gradually making progress through this series of psyops to diffuse what the deep state created? Because even in the absence of one of their artificial detonators and their mad scientists, again, using that metaphor, they still created a bomb that could go off. How do you deal with that? Well, the answer is everything that we're going through right now, everything that we've been through. Unity has to be artificially engineered so that it can be organically manifested, even though that sounds paradoxical. The only way to prevent us from destroying ourselves is to create the circumstances under which people can have what appears to be an organic awakening and come together and to unify around core truths. But you can't just, this entire world was built around lies. Our entire life, the whole framework of our existence has been built upon lies about everything. You can't just inject the truth. You can't mainline it into people and expect that that's going to go well. And this goes back to earlier episodes. I remember I did that whole series on, gosh, seems like such a long time ago, the Agent Buried Alive series that I did. And from there, I branched out. These are the early days of my show, but I was doing a lot of analysis about MK Ultra programming and how they conditioned humanity, essentially, into this divide and conquer situation. But at a certain point, it's like the penny dropped, and I realized that even in the absence of the cabal, that's why we still have this, we wake up in this very sick world every day. Even if the enemy's already been removed. Sure, the illusion is being propped up by the White Hats for reasons that we all understand. That the lion's share of the enemy and certainly their weaponry and their power, all of that stuff has been removed, and yet we still wake up every day in a very sick world. Why? Again, because that was the weapon. That was the tinderbox that they created. It's almost like, a very sick person, you get so used to consuming poison. You take like a drug addict or whatever, so used to injecting and consuming poison that becomes your daily existence. Even though it's killing you, you're still pursuing that because that's all you know. If somebody comes and tries to snatch the drugs out of your hand, how are you going to react? Violently. Even at the same time, they're offering you treatment, they're offering you healthy alternatives. You're not going to want any of that nonsense. You're going to want to cling to the only thing that you know that keeps your world together. Your ideology. That's been engineered, that's been curated for you. A very sick one. But it's the only thing that you know. And they made sure that they were going to engineer, this is societal, social, psychological engineering, that they made sure that they were going to create the circumstances inside of every human being out there, save for those of us who are awake, that whatever threatened their matrix, they were going to react with genuine hatred and hostility and even violence. That's why that clip that Mike shared a few weeks back from the Matrix, where Morpheus is explaining this to Neo, that's what we're up against. That is the nature of this war. And if they don't do it right, that's why, you've heard this over and over. But this is really what what it comes down to. When people say we've only got one shot at this and they've got to get it right, you better believe that's true. But a lot of folks don't really understand what it is that they have to get right. Some people still think that they're battling the deep state, and that it's a tit-for-tat chess move. I say bullshit. I'd say that ended a long time ago. But it doesn't matter. If you want to believe that, fine. But that's not what it's really about, folks. It's not about, the white hats make one wrong move and the deep state is going to take over the chessboard. No. We completely control the chessboard. But what we don't control is the weapon forged by the deep state that in essence is their legacy long after they've already been removed, which is the weaponization of humanity against each other based upon all of these divisions. And you cannot, with a broad stroke, come in and try to take a very sick, wounded, dangerous, rabid animal or animals and just inject the truth, tell everybody the truth, and think that that's not going to cause the exact breakdown that the deep state had intended to trigger on their own artificially with their own detonators. But none of it would have worked, you see, if humanity was unified. In other words, if they hadn't divided us, they wouldn't have been able to conquer us. The division was the most important element. And that's what's being reversed right now. You cannot tell the people. You have to show them. And it has to be done methodically. But there is a method to all of this madness. That's what Q is trying to get through to all of us. There's a reason for everything that they're doing right now. Even the stuff that we don't necessarily understand. We can speculate all day about where I started today talking about the whole Trump thing and the COVID shot. Where are they going with that? Not sure exactly. I do know that they're also at the same time saying that Biden is basically, battling all different types of cancer. I think it's different types. I'm not even sure, but he's battling cancer. And here he is, fully boosted, fully vaccinated, on and on and on. Do I think that this is teeing up some very important disclosure that I alluded to that, BB and I talked about and that we brought up again on the roundtable pertaining to vaccines? Yeah. How many times have we seen Trump supposedly optically take the wrong position on an issue and then it boomerangs back and he rug pulls? It's happened so many times at this point, and yet people still want to get upset. I'm not upset about it because at the end of the day, like I said earlier, either you believe in this operation and you believe in the core of everything that we have spoken about now for years and years, all of the evidence that's been presented by all the great anons out there, and you recognize that there is an operation that you just simply cannot even begin to wrap your brain around the brilliance of, or you can just say, well, you don't have the proof. I haven't seen arrests yet. Blah, blah, blah. And you can blackpill. Now, I know that I'm talking to an audience who's never going to go down that road. Sure, you probably had your moments, like I admitted to, where you question things and everything else. But eventually you get to a place where you realize that it can either be, it's either one or the other. And I know where I stand. And that's not how, and that's the reason, folks, why I don't put a lot of stock in, the more time goes on, the less emotionally connected I feel to the events that are happening around me. I mean, I am human. I'm still going to have that happen. But for the most part, like I admitted to, I realize that as soon as I take an emotional stance on something, the foundation of my analysis as a non is going to be skewed. It's going to send me in the wrong direction. We were warned about this over and over and over. Why? Because Q is telling us none of the stuff that you think is happening, or whatever it is that appears to be happening on the surface that doesn't look good, that looks bad, is being done for a reason. There's a strategy behind it. And we've lived already through countless examples of this. Wherever our expectations don't get met, wherever our timeline doesn't get fulfilled, we can honestly look back and say this was so much better that they rolled it out this way. Not that we don't wish this wasn't over already. Of course we do. But everything that I've laid out today, the stakes, folks, and that's the thing that people need to remember. We're not out of the woods yet because of the bulk of what I talked about today. The stakes could never be higher because of the status of humanity right now. And as much as you want to maybe make an argument, and I've tried to make the argument as well, that they could fast forward this process, they can't. And I can guarantee you that they've gone through, they've used AI, the most advanced technologies that we know about and beyond, to come to the conclusion that the only way to do this effectively is the way that it's being done. To push forward, then to pull back, to put something on the front burner, then take it off, to basically to cook is the metaphor that a lot of people are using. Just let them cook. It's the only effective way. And honestly, I mean, just think about it from the military's perspective. Don't you think that if they could do this faster, they would want to? If there are good guys in the world and they're trying to usher in this golden age and to unify all of us, if they had a fast forward button, don't you think they would have used it? Isn't that the reason why we were told over and over and over? It had to be this way. So all of us, regardless of whatever our emotions are, whatever our confusion is. I mean, honestly, at this point, folks, if I look at an event, it used to really bother me if I couldn't see the angle. Like, what direction are they going to go now with Netanyahu and Israel? I don't know. What direction are they going to go now with the vaccine? I don't know. And, you can just go on and on and on and on and on. That's how I approached my analysis, was trying to put together what I believed at the time to be a plausible scenario moving forward. I don't do that anymore. Why? Because I've realized that it's basically wasted energy. It's far more important to look at the big picture. Because whatever it is, I mean, this stuff with the vaccine, we're going to figure out what the play is in the not too distant future. Same thing with Israel. Same thing on the financial front. Time is going to reveal. News unlocks the map. It used to really bother me when I couldn't figure it out until finally I realized you're not supposed to. And you're focusing all of your energy in the wrong direction. This is a spiritual battle at its core. This is good versus evil. And the way that we navigate this war internally is everything. There are people out there who are in a constant state of chaos because they're trying to answer questions that are deliberately unanswerable at this specific moment in history. And I get it. It's frustrating beyond belief. And folks have a difficult time getting to a point where they can accept the reality of what it is that we're being forced to undergo as a species in order to ascend. They don't want to accept the idea that nothing is what it seems. And they want to be able to exercise their discernment based upon what they're seeing as if it's actually true. They can't disconnect themselves effectively and say most of what we're seeing is bare minimum a manipulation. And in most cases, it's basically curated. We are the gatekeepers of all, and by all we mean all information. That sounds pretty unambiguous to me. Do you trust the U.S. military? Do you trust the chain of command? Do you believe that patriots are in control? Do you believe that that's the reason that we're still able to have these podcasts, to share these ideas, that we're not already dead or in a camp? I do. Have you recognized the extent of the capabilities of military intelligence? Being a civilian with limited information, have you accepted how far they can take this, especially with the technology that's available to them? I certainly have, and I know all of you out there have as well. So don't get too caught up. I mean, the fact of the matter is, folks, more and more of this stuff is going to happen. The closer we get, the deeper we go, as Q put it, the more unreal it all becomes. But if you keep yourself focused on the overall trajectory, if you remind yourself that none of us would be here right now, how much we've grown spiritually, how much progress we're making toward dissolving that division, it's still there. Like I've been talking about today, no question. It's still a formidable weapon. That's why it's being very delicately handled, this massive bomb that needs to be deactivated. But how much progress have we really made, considering where we were? And look at all the amazing things that are just over the horizon. Look at the fact that Kirill Dmitriev, literally a special envoy who has direct connections to Putin, is dropping. He's literally posting Q drops. Now Trump is ratcheting up the tension again with China. I mean, we know that he's working. They're all working together. It's all a movie. Look at what's about to be set up in the financial system. Decentralized finance, blockchain, the revolution. We're a hop, skip, and a jump away from that, folks. Clarity Act, the approval of ETFs, especially from an XRP standpoint. Ripple National Trust Bank. Absolute massive industrial scale investment, institutional investment, really. Up until this point, the crypto market's basically been retail to people like you and I speculating. Once the institutions come in and the billions and trillions flow into it, you just wait. You'll see. So geopolitically, financially, and domestically, law and order is being brought back. Have I talked pretty much nonstop about the military being shipped into or mobilized into the blue states for the reasons that we've all long known and predicted would come to pass based on what Q told us? Yes, absolutely. But in the meantime, they're also cleaning up the most violent streets in Memphis and Chicago. We're already at Title 10. We're one step away from the Insurrection Act being overtly declared. And every single day, they're just building up that tension. So I look at all that and I think to myself, I'm not going to get all tangled up in the weeds because I don't understand what a specific move is designed to do strategically. I just have confidence and trust and belief in the U.S. military, in Donald Trump, in the White Hats, but most importantly, in Jesus Christ. And knowing that there are forces of good in this world and have always been there battling back against this evil. And that we now have it on the ropes. So don't get it twisted, folks. We're not out of the woods yet as far as the biggest challenge of all, which is unifying the people and keeping society intact and actually coming out of this stronger. Which, I mean, I guess, the bar is set pretty low. I mean, they pretty much eroded all of the reasons that we had to stand together as one people. I guess the point is, there's only one place to go at this point, which is up from there. But that's why this whole process has had to play out this way. So I hope folks understand all of that. I can find peace in it. There's a heck of a lot more to be celebrating right now than there is to be cynical about, to be angry about. Humanity, on one level, has already been liberated. But now we're engaged in the really difficult work of manufacturing these circumstances in just such a way, with precision timing, so that we can all come together again. We can reunify, we can heal, we can build an entirely new world on the ashes of what the deep state left behind. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting there very, very rapidly. Much more rapidly, I think, than a lot of people want to acknowledge. And the truth of the matter is, as far as I'm concerned, folks, I'm here for the long haul. I'm here to see this thing through to the end, regardless of how long it takes. And I made a pledge to my audience a long time ago that I intend to honor, which is, if I ever had any reason to believe that things were heading in the wrong direction, that I were to change my view, if I ever got to a point, kind of like I was alluding to a little bit earlier, of thinking, oh, no, maybe I actually did get duped and all this stuff, I'm going to tell you the truth about what I think and what I believe, regardless. It's never been about how many people I can have as followers. I didn't enter this arena for that, for attention, for money, for any of it. Certain things have come along as the result of my journey, but it hasn't changed my core motivations. In other words, I would rather not have a platform. I'd rather have no followers. I'd rather abandon the idea of doing any full-time podcasting and being able to make a living. I'd rather do that than to feel like I had changed my mind and then I was lying to people in order to prop up the illusion for whatever selfish reasons I might have. I mean, I just don't operate that. But I truly believe, and despite even my darkest moments, I have never ever wavered in knowing that there is a force of good that is taking down this evil, that has partnered with us, a military civilian alliance, to do God's work and to heal this world, to usher truth into the world, to transition from dark to light. All right, folks, so I'm going to wrap it up here and realize it's been over an hour, so probably have to, well, I definitely have to get on with my day at this point. But I hope you guys enjoyed this coffee chat. Please let me know in the comments. Please make sure you hit that like button. And really quickly, check out the links in the description. First and foremost, my good friend, Matt Geiger at Verity Metals. A lot of people have been making calls to Matt. There have been several audience members out there who have already successfully done a deal with him and are extremely happy with the service that he provided, the prices that he quoted. I mean, he is an honest, upfront guy. He's going to tell you the truth. He's going to give you a very good deal. And so, people are, I mean, he's been telling me, I mean, day by day, the calls are just, keep flooding in. Even if you're not really sure what you want to do, this is the guy to talk to about your options. Right? Whether you're interested in a self-custody IRA, a rollover, whether you're thinking about purchasing metals, you're not really sure what to buy, how much to buy, when to buy. He'll have those conversations with you. I'm going to have him back on the show in the near future. I'm not exactly sure when. He was supposed to come on last week. I was a little bit under the weather. As it turned out, he was too. But Matt is a great guy. You really should get in touch with him. And obviously right now, I mean, gold and silver. Silver's approaching, well, it was at one point, it was 50 per ounce. Gold already might have dipped a little bit. I didn't look at it today, but already all-time high over 4,000. This is just the beginning. So make sure you call Matt Geiger. Also, check out all the other links in the description. Syrona products are absolutely amazing. I love the ELIXIR, the Lucid, the skin spray. They've got a great new product, a Zeolite product. I mean, it just goes on and on. Ethan is doing amazing work over there. So click the link and you can support the show by getting yourself top-notch nutraceuticals. You can also do that by checking out Patrick Gunnell's website, tulipblooms.shop/underground, I believe it is. And you can support the show that way. You can also become a member of my locals community by donating $5 a month or more, depending upon what you can afford. You can also toggle and make a one-time, if you don't want to do monthly, you can make a one-time donation. That actually is huge. That keeps me going because pretty much 100% of that money comes to me, and it helps me move in the direction of not only supporting myself and my family, but also to be able to do this at some point in the future as a full-time job. So there's that. I also wanted to just mention, and there are other links as well, like Patriot Switch, Patriot Underground Switch, I believe is the, I think that's the URL at this point. It's up to date in the description. Also Patriot Mobile. There's a lot of different ways in my merch store that you can support me. You can pick up a sticker, a hoodie, a t-shirt. I did want to mention the XRP MasterCard from Gemini. And I've talked a lot about this on social media, on X, on Telegram, and on Truth Social. But this is a great way. The Gemini partnered with MasterCard to put out an XRP rewards credit card. Now, it's the same as every other credit card, right? You have interest and everything else if you don't pay your balance at the end of every month. But the way that I'm using it is, instead of using my debit card for my daily purchases, for my gas, for my groceries, whatever, I'm just using the Gemini credit card and paying the balance in full every month and getting instant XRP rewards. So for people out there, I mean, I don't care how much XRP you have, you can always use more as far as I'm concerned. But for people out there who don't have a lot of money to invest, even though XRP right now is at like bargain prices. I mean, we're talking like you can probably pick it up for like $2.30 a coin, $2.40, maybe somewhere in that range. After this big crypto event that happened a few days ago, which I won't get into, it was obviously pure market manipulation, which is another reason why they need the Clarity Act. This is what's keeping institutional investment on the sidelines at this point, even though I think they're coordinating to a certain degree to suppress the price of XRP because they know how valuable it's going to be. But regardless, after this event, I mean, you're talking about some major dips right now. So now is really a good time to purchase XRP or XLM. There are others, but XRP is my number one. But even for folks out there who can't afford to make a sizable investment and to purchase that XRP up front, you're still going to be making your daily purchases. You're still going to have to fill up your truck with gas. You're still going to have to get groceries. You're still going to have to go and get your basic supplies. That's what this credit card does. It gives you a rewards, 4% on gas, 3% on dining, 2% on groceries, and 1% on everything else. So you make a purchase, you immediately get your XRP rewards. You can use my referral link to get an additional $50 worth of XRP after your first statement. But this is a great way to accumulate an asset that I think is probably the most undervalued in the world. So click on that link in the description, and it's really easy. You just set up a Gemini account, you download the app, you apply for the card, and you'll get it in a couple of weeks. I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And I've been accumulating a pretty significant amount just over the past couple of months from my daily purchases. So lots of different ways that you can support what I do, folks. Hopefully you will take advantage of several of those, if not just one or two. But I try to make it as easy as possible for people to support what I do. But I just want to say thank you to everybody for being so supportive, for standing with me on this journey. It's been an incredible ride. Let's finish this together, folks. We are getting into the really good stuff now. So lock in. There's going to be a lot to talk about tomorrow with Mike, and certainly in the days to come. I'm going to be appearing on News Treason next Thursday, so should be some great content headed your way. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. God bless and Godspeed. Patriot out.